Hello guys, this is True Stories. I never believed in ghost stories. Not the internet ones. Not the my cousin saw something in the woods stories. And definitely not the stories people in small towns tell just to scare outsiders. But after what happened on Black Pine Road, I don't drive at night anymore. And I haven't answered a call from an unknown number in almost 3 years. This happened in Northern Oregon during the winter of 2022. At the time, I was delivering medical supplies for a small company that handled emergency overnight shipments between rural hospitals. It paid well and most nights were easy. Empty roads, podcasts, coffee, and long drives through forests. I actually liked it. Until Route 16. There's a stretch of highway near a tiny town called Alder Creek. One road in, one road out. Forest on both sides for miles. No gas stations. No stores. No lights. Locals call the area Dead Signal Valley because your phone completely loses service there. At least it's supposed to. My shift started at 11:40 p.m. The snow had already started coming down hard when I picked up the package from Mercy Hospital in Portland. The label said it needed to reach Alder Creek Medical Center before 3 a.m. Simple enough. 4-hour drive. I grabbed coffee, started my playlist, and headed north. The first 2 hours were normal. Then my GPS started glitching. The screen froze for a second before rerouting me onto a smaller road I'd never taken before. Black Pine Road. I remember staring at the sign as my headlights hit it. The wood looked old and rotten, like it had been standing there for decades. And underneath the road name, someone had spray painted, "Don't stop." I laughed. Seriously. I actually laughed out loud because I thought it was some stupid prank. Then I turned onto the road. The trees were packed so tightly together, they almost blocked the sky completely. Snow fell in thick sheets, and the road narrowed until it barely fit my van. 10 minutes in, my radio died. Not static, just silent. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered with my Bluetooth, "Hello." Nothing, just breathing slow. Wet breathing. I frowned and checked my signal bars. 3 bars. That made no sense. Everyone knew there was no service out there. Hello. I repeated. The breathing stopped. Then a woman whispered, "Don't let her in." The call disconnected. I sat there staring at the dashboard for a few seconds. My first thought was that someone hacked the line somehow. My second thought was that I needed to stop listening to horror podcasts while driving at night. So I kept going. About 5 minutes later, I saw someone standing in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes so hard the van skidded sideways. It was a girl, maybe 16 or 17, thin, barefoot, wearing a pale hospital gown soaked with snow. Her hair covered most of her face. She didn't move, didn't react, just stood there. I rolled my window down a little. "Hey, are you okay?" No response. The girl slowly lifted one arm and pointed toward the woods. That's when I noticed something behind her, shapes. Tall shapes moving between the trees. At first I thought they were people. Then they stepped closer to the road. Their bodies were wrong, too tall. Arms hanging almost to the ground. And their faces, I still can't explain the faces. Smooth, blank. Like melted skin with deep black holes where the eyes should have been. The girl suddenly screamed, "Drive." I hit the gas immediately. The van fishtailed on the ice as I sped past her. In the mirror, I saw the shapes rush onto the road. Not running, jerking. Like broken puppets being pulled by strings. Then the girl disappeared. Completely gone. I drove for another 20 minutes before I finally calmed down enough to breathe normally. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe drugs. Maybe hallucinations from exhaustion. Maybe I was losing my mind. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but I answered. This time the woman sounded terrified. You stopped for her, what? You stopped the car. My stomach tightened. How do you know that? The woman started crying softly. She follows people home. The line crackled violently. Then I heard another voice in the background. A girl's voice. The same girl from the road. She can hear you. The call ended. Right after that, my headlights died. Everything went black. The van was still moving. I nearly crashed trying to keep control. Then the lights flickered back on, and someone was sitting in the passenger seat, the girl. Her head tilted slightly toward me. Water dripped from her hair onto the seat. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even scream. She slowly raised one finger to her lips. Don't look behind you, she whispered. Every instinct in my body told me to look, so I did. Something was pressed against the rear window, a face, huge, pale, smiling impossibly wide. Its eyes were completely black, and its mouth kept stretching wider and wider until the skin around its cheeks started tearing. I swerved violently. The van slammed into a snowbank. Everything went silent. For a few seconds, I just sat there shaking. Then I realized the passenger seat was empty again. I grabbed my flashlight and stumbled outside. The storm had gotten worse. Snow blasted across the road so hard I could barely see. But I heard footsteps crunching behind me, slow, heavy. I turned the flashlight toward the trees. At first, there was nothing. Then the beam landed on dozens of people standing between the trees. All motionless, all staring at me, men, women, children. Every single one wearing hospital gowns. And every single face looked wrong. Not blank this time. Stretched, like they were trying to smile without understanding how. One of them stepped forward. Its jaw cracked loudly as it opened its mouth. Then all of them started whispering together. Not words, just sounds, wet sounds. The flashlight died. I ran back to the van, locked the doors, started the engine. The whispers surrounded the vehicle immediately. Hands began slamming against the windows. Dozens of hands. I couldn't see the bodies clearly through the snow, but I saw fingers dragging across the glass. Then came the voice, right beside my ear, even though nobody was inside. She likes you. The girl was suddenly sitting behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly broke my neck. Her face was finally visible, and I wish it hadn't been. Her skin was gray, her eyes completely white. Her mouth hung open far too wide, exposing rows of tiny broken teeth. She was lonely, the girl whispered. The back window exploded inward. Something grabbed my jacket. I floored the gas. The van lurched forward while shapes slammed against the sides. I drove blindly through the storm for what felt like forever. Eventually, I saw lights ahead. A gas station. I pulled in so fast I almost hit the pumps. The moment I stepped out of the van, an older man came running from inside. He looked terrified. You came from Black Pine. I nodded. The man immediately looked inside my van. Then his face went pale. She's gone, he whispered. What? He pointed at the passenger seat. Wet footprints covered the floor. Small barefoot footprints, leading into the back of the van. The man grabbed my arm hard. Don't open that door. I stared at him. What are you talking about? He looked genuinely panicked. 3 people disappeared out there this winter. He lowered his voice. They all picked up the girl. Before I could respond, bang. Something slammed from inside the cargo area. Both of us froze. Another bang, then scratching, slow scratching, like fingernails dragging across metal. The old man backed away immediately. "You need to leave." "What?" "You need to leave now." Another violent crash hit the inside of the van. The entire vehicle shook. Then came a voice from inside. A little girl's voice. "Please help me." I moved toward the back doors automatically. The old man shouted, "Don't." But I already grabbed the handle. The scratching stopped instantly. Complete silence. Snow fell quietly around us. The old man looked horrified. I slowly pulled the door open. At first, the cargo area looked empty. Then I noticed something hanging from the ceiling. Bodies. At least 6 of them. Twisted upside down like meat hooks in a butcher shop. Their mouths were sewn open into massive smiles. And all their eyes were missing. I stumbled backward screaming. One of the bodies moved. Its head turned toward me slowly. Then every body inside the van started laughing. Not normal laughter. Deep choking laughter. The doors slammed shut by themselves. The old man ran into the gas station. And every light inside the building instantly went dark. I heard screaming from inside. Then silence. I jumped into the van and drove. I didn't care where. I just drove. The GPS kept spinning in circles. Road signs repeated themselves. At one point I passed the same dead deer 3 different times. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered while crying. "I don't know what you want." The woman spoke calmly this time. "You let her out." "What is she?" Long silence. Then she was the first patient. The call crackled. In 1978, Alder Creek Psychiatric Hospital burned down. My blood went cold. 43 patients died. Another pause, but one survived. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "What happened to her?" The woman whispered they left her alone in the basement. Suddenly, the girl's voice came through the phone again. I was scared. Then every light in the van shut off. The engine died. And standing in front of the vehicle was the hospital, massive, burned black, hidden deep in the woods. I had never seen it before, but somehow I knew it had been waiting for me. The front doors slowly opened by themselves, and dozens of pale figures stood inside the darkness smiling at me, waiting. My phone received one final text. "Unknown number, she brought you home." I don't remember how I escaped. People ask me that all the time. Truth is, I genuinely don't know. The next thing I remember was waking up in a hospital 2 counties away. Hypothermia. Minor concussion. That's what doctors said. Police searched Black Pine Road. They found my van abandoned, empty. No bodies, no footprints, no hospital, nothing. But they did find one thing. On the fogged passenger window, written from the inside, "Still here." I quit my job after that. Moved states. Changed my number. Tried to forget. But sometimes late at night, my phone still rings from an unknown number. And every single time there's only breathing, slow, wet. If you grew up in America, you probably heard stories about old houses. Not haunted mansions. Not abandoned hospitals. Just normal houses. The kind with peeling paint, squeaky stairs, and neighbors who say things like, "Yeah, the last family moved out pretty suddenly." I used to think those stories were exaggerated. Then my family moved into the Walker house. And now I understand why nobody stayed there longer than 6 months. This happened in October of 2021 in a small town outside of Cleveland. At the time, I was 17 years old. My dad had just gotten laid off from his factory job, money was tight, and somehow my parents found this giant 2-story house for almost half the normal price. That should have been the first red flag. But when you're struggling financially, cheap feels like a miracle. The house sat at the end of a dead street, surrounded by dying trees. The yard was overgrown, the porch sagged slightly to one side, and every window looked darker than it should have been. Even during the day, the previous owners had apparently left in a hurry because some of their stuff was still inside. Old dishes, a broken lamp, family photos. That part always bothered me. Who leaves family photos behind? But my parents ignored it. My little sister Emma loved the place immediately. She was 8 years old and obsessed with the attic because it had this tiny circular window overlooking the woods behind the house. The first week was normal, mostly. The house creaked constantly at night, but old houses do that. Then Emma started talking to someone. At first, we thought it was imaginary friend stuff. One night during dinner, my mom asked her, "Who were you talking to upstairs?" Emma shrugged casually, "The boy." My dad laughed. "What boy?" "The boy under the floor." The table went quiet. I remember my mom smiling awkwardly. "What do you mean under the floor?" Emma pointed upward toward the ceiling. "He talks at night." That creeped me out instantly. But my dad brushed it off. "She watches too many scary cartoons." That night around 2 a.m., I woke up to whispering. At first I thought it was the TV downstairs. Then I realized the whispering was coming from inside my room. I sat up slowly. The room was pitch black except for moonlight coming through the blinds. The whispering stopped. Then knock. A soft knock came from under my bed. I froze. Another knock. 3 slow taps against the wood beneath me. I grabbed my phone flashlight and looked under the bed. Nothing. Just storage boxes. But the air underneath looked darker somehow. Like the shadows were thicker there. I barely slept after that. The next morning, Emma looked exhausted. Huge dark circles under her eyes. At breakfast, she whispered something to my mom. "What?" Emma looked nervous. "The boy says we shouldn't go into the basement anymore." My dad finally got annoyed. "There is no boy." Emma stared at him silently for a few seconds. Then she said something I'll never forget. "He said you made him angry." That night, my dad checked the basement himself. He came back irritated, saying there were probably rats inside the walls making noises. But I noticed something strange. His hands were shaking. A few days later, things got worse. Every night around 1:13 a.m., the same sound echoed through the house. Knock, knock, knock. Always from inside the walls. Sometimes upstairs. Sometimes downstairs. Sometimes directly beneath our feet. My mom stopped sleeping. Dad became angry constantly. And Emma kept talking to the boy. One afternoon, I asked her what he looked like. She answered immediately. "He doesn't have eyes anymore." I felt cold all over. "What?" He said the dark took them. Kids say creepy things sometimes. But there was something about the way she said it that made my stomach twist. Like she wasn't pretending. A week later, I was home alone watching Emma while my parents went grocery shopping. We were sitting in the living room when the power suddenly shut off. The TV died. Lights out. Everything silent. Then we heard it dragging. Something dragging slowly across the ceiling above us. Emma looked terrified. "He's awake." The dragging moved toward the staircase. Thump, thump, thump. Heavy footsteps started coming downstairs. I grabbed Emma's hand immediately. "Dad." I shouted. No answer. The footsteps stopped halfway down the stairs. I could hear breathing. Deep breathing, like someone standing in the dark listening to us. Then a voice whispered, "Emma." It sounded wet, wrong. Not human. Emma started crying. I grabbed a kitchen knife and backed toward the front door. The staircase creaked again, slowly, like someone leaning forward, watching us. Then the power came back on. The stairs were empty, but carved into the wooden wall beside the staircase were fresh words. "Let me out." My parents didn't believe us at first, until they saw the scratches themselves. Dad checked every door and window thinking someone broke inside. Nobody had. That night, he drank more than usual. Around midnight, I heard my parents arguing downstairs. Dad wanted to move. Mom said we couldn't afford it. Then suddenly, crash. Something shattered downstairs. I ran out of my room. My parents stood frozen in the kitchen, staring at the floor. The basement door was open. Neither of them had touched it. Cold air poured upward from the darkness below. And from somewhere deep underground, we heard a child laughing. My dad slowly grabbed a flashlight. Mom begged him not to go down there, but he did anyway. I still remember watching the flashlight beam disappear into the basement darkness step by step. Then silence. Complete silence. 30 seconds later, we heard him scream. Not a normal scream. Pure terror. Mom ran downstairs first. I followed. The basement was huge and unfinished, filled with old pipes and concrete walls stained with moisture. Dad stood frozen near the far wall, pointing his flashlight downward. The concrete floor had cracked open, and beneath it was another room. A hidden room. The smell coming from inside was unbearable, rotting, wet, wrong. Dad aimed the flashlight through the hole. There was a small wooden bed down there. Children's drawings on the walls. Chains bolted to the floor. And thousands of scratches covering every inch of the room. Then we saw the words, "Help me," written over and over across the walls. Mom immediately called the police. 2 officers arrived about 40 minutes later. At first, they acted skeptical. Then one officer climbed into the hidden room. A minute later, he yelled for backup. The house suddenly became chaos. Police cars, detectives, crime scene tape. Apparently decades earlier, a family living there had reported their son missing. 80-year-old Daniel Walker. He was never found. Until that night. The hidden room contained human remains buried beneath the floorboards. Small bones. A child's bones. The police believed Daniel's father had locked him down there. And forgotten him. Or maybe left him there intentionally. Nobody knew. The story hit local news immediately. And for a moment, things seemed normal again. Emma stopped talking about the boy. The knocking stopped. Even my parents relaxed slightly. Then came Halloween night. I was upstairs playing video games when Emma knocked on my door. She looked pale. "He says thank you." I frowned. "Who?" "The boy." My blood ran cold. "Emma, he says he isn't alone anymore." Every light in the house shut off instantly. Downstairs, my mom screamed. Then came pounding from beneath the floor. Not knocking, pounding. The entire house shook violently. Walls creaked. Floorboards bent upward. And from all around us came children's voices crying simultaneously. Dozens of them. Maybe more. The air smelled like mold and dirt. Then the whispering started. Inside the walls. Inside the ceiling. Inside the floor. "Let us out," Emma suddenly pointed toward the hallway. Shapes stood there, children. Thin dark figures with hollow eye sockets. All staring at us silently. One stepped forward unnaturally fast. its mouth stretched open far too wide. I grabbed Emma and ran downstairs. My parents were already trying to get outside, but the front door wouldn't open. Dad pulled as hard as he could, nothing. Then we heard footsteps upstairs. Hundreds of footsteps, running across the ceiling. The chandelier started swinging violently, and all the voices screamed together, "Stay." The temperature dropped instantly. Frost spread across the windows. Then something moved behind the basement door, huge. Too tall to fit normally. The door slowly bent outward as if something massive was pressing against it from below. Dad shouted for everyone to get back. Then the basement door exploded open. Darkness poured upward. Not metaphorically. Actual darkness, like thick black smoke crawling across the walls. And inside it, faces. Dozens of pale screaming faces twisting together. I'll never forget the sound they made. Not screams, starving sounds. The shadows rushed toward us. Dad smashed a living room window with a chair. Cold air blasted inside. We climbed out one by one onto the lawn. The moment Emma crossed the window, every voice inside the house screamed. Not angry, desperate. The entire house began shaking violently. Windows shattered outward. And then silence. Complete silence. We stood in the yard staring at the house. Every light slowly turned back on by itself. One room at a time. Until only the attic light remained. A figure stood in the circular attic window. A little boy, watching us. Then the light shut off. Police searched the house again that night. They found nothing unusual. No damage in the basement. No broken pipes. No hidden figures, nothing. But one officer did mention something strange. All the children's drawings in the hidden room had changed. Originally, they showed one child. Now they showed many. After that night, we moved immediately. Didn't even pack most of our stuff. My parents never spoke about the house again. But a few months later, I searched the address online. The house had already been sold again. New family, 2 parents, 1 little girl. And last week I got a message request on Facebook from an account with no profile picture. Just one sentence, "He still talks at night." The rules for night shift 9 in America, there are thousands of 24-hour gas stations. Most people never think about them. They stop for snacks, fuel, coffee. Then they leave. But if you've ever worked the overnight shift at one of those places, you know something most customers don't. Around 3 a.m., people stop acting normal. This happened to me in the winter of 2023, outside of Phoenix. At the time, I was 19 years old and desperate for money. College wasn't going well, my car barely worked, and my mom had medical bills piling up. So when I saw a night cashier needed immediately sign at a gas station off Interstate 17, I took the job without asking questions. The place was called Maverick Fuel Stop. Small building, 3 gas pumps, middle of nowhere. The nearest town was almost 30 minutes away. During the interview, the manager barely looked at me. His name was Rick. Mid-50s, exhausted eyes, cigarette smell soaked into his clothes. He asked only 2 questions. Can you stay awake all night? Yes. Can you follow instructions exactly? I laughed a little. Probably. Rick didn't laugh back. Instead, he reached into a drawer and handed me a folded paper. Read these before your first shift. That was it. No training, no tour, nothing. I unfolded the paper in my car afterward. At the top, written in black marker, were the words, "Night shift rules, read carefully." I honestly thought it was a joke. Until I started reading. Rule 1, lock the front doors exactly at 1:13 a.m. Not before, not after. Rule 2, if someone knocks after 1:13, do not let them inside unless they say the code phrase. Rule 3, the code phrase changes nightly. It will appear on the register screen at midnight. Rule 4, if pump 3 activates by itself, do not look outside for longer than 5 seconds. Rule 5, at 3 a.m., the radio will stop working. Do not attempt to turn it back on. Rule 6, if a customer asks for cigarettes named Silver Lights, tell them you're sold out, even if you aren't. Rule 7, never enter the storage room between 3:30 and 3:45 a.m. Rule 8, if you hear scratching above the ceiling tiles, stay silent. Rule 9, if the woman in white enters the store, hide. At the bottom of the page, someone had written, most people quit after the first night. I remember sitting in my car laughing because I thought Rick was just trying to scare new employees. Then Friday came. My first overnight shift started at 10 p.m. Rick looked strangely nervous while explaining the register. Before leaving, he grabbed my shoulder. If Rule 9 happens, he hesitated. Don't let her see you. Then he walked out. The station became dead quiet. For the first few hours, everything was normal. Truck drivers came in for coffee. Teenagers bought energy drinks. One guy argued with me about lottery tickets for 15 minutes. Completely ordinary. At exactly midnight, the register screen flickered. Then words slowly appeared across it, tonight's code phrase, the highway ends here. I stared at the screen for a second. Then it disappeared. I started feeling uneasy around 12:45. The parking lot became unnaturally empty, no cars. No headlights, nothing. Just desert wind hitting the windows. Then 1:13 arrived. I locked the front doors. The moment the lock clicked, bang. Someone hit the glass immediately. I jumped so hard I almost dropped my phone. A man stood outside, tall, wearing a dark jacket. I hadn't seen him walk up. He smiled at me through the glass, then knocked again slowly. I remembered the rules and forced myself to stay calm. The man mouthed something. I cracked the door slightly. What? He smiled wider. No eat gas. What's the code phrase? His expression froze instantly. For a few seconds, he just stared at me. Then he whispered, please. Every hair on my body stood up. I slammed the door shut and locked it. The man stopped smiling. Then he slowly walked backward into the darkness beyond the gas pumps. And disappeared. Not walked away. Disappeared. At 1:40 a.m., pump 3 activated. The machine beeped loudly. I looked up automatically. The screen showed $66.60. No vehicle was outside. The pump handle hung in the air, slightly tilted, like someone invisible was holding it. I remembered Rule 4. Don't look outside for longer than 5 seconds. But curiosity got me. I stared too long. At first, nothing happened. Then something moved near the edge of the parking lot. A person standing under the dead parking light, too tall. Its arms hung almost to the ground. And its head twitched violently side to side, like a broken mannequin. I looked away immediately. The gas station lights flickered. Then all the windows went black for 1 second. Like something huge passed in front of them. A loud thud hit the roof. Then silence. I started seriously considering quitting right there. At exactly 3 a.m., the radio died. The music cut out mid-song. Static filled the store briefly. Then a voice whispered through the speakers, she's coming. The speakers shut off completely. I felt sick. Then I noticed something strange. Every insect sound outside had stopped. No wind, no cars, nothing. The world felt dead. A few minutes later, a customer entered. An old woman wearing sunglasses despite it being nighttime. She walked directly to the counter. "Silver lights," she said. My stomach dropped. Rule 6. "We're sold out." The woman smiled slowly. "You should check again. We're sold out." Her smile widened unnaturally far. I noticed her sunglasses didn't reflect the store lights, almost like there were no eyes behind them. Then she leaned closer. "You looked outside too long." My blood went cold. Before I could respond, she turned and walked out. The automatic doors never opened. She somehow passed through them. I nearly threw up. At 3:28 a.m., scratching started above the ceiling. Slow, dragging sounds, like fingernails scraping slowly across tiles. Rule 8. Stay silent. The scratching moved directly above me, then stopped. I held my breath. A tile above the counter shifted slightly downward. Dust fell onto the register. Then I heard breathing, right above my head. Wet breathing. Something whispered my name. I never told anyone my name there. I stayed completely silent. After about 30 seconds, the breathing moved away. Then came Rule 7, 3:30 a.m. The storage room sat behind the drink coolers, and right on schedule, someone started knocking from inside it. 3 knocks, pause. 3 more knocks. Then a man's voice helped me. I froze. The knocking became frantic. "Please." The doorknob started rattling violently. I can't breathe. Every instinct screamed at me to open the door. Then I remembered the rules. Do not enter between 3:30 and 3:45. The screaming continued for 15 straight minutes, then stopped instantly at 3:45. Silence. Absolute silence. At that point, I was already shaking uncontrollably. But the worst part still hadn't happened. 4:02 a.m. The front doors slid open by themselves. A woman walked inside. White dress, barefoot. Long black hair covering her face. Water dripped onto the floor beneath her feet. Rule 9, hide. I immediately ducked behind the counter. The woman stopped moving. The store became freezing cold. I heard soft footsteps moving slowly across the aisles. Then silence. For a second I thought maybe she left. Then I heard her whisper, "Where are you?" Her voice sounded layered, like multiple people speaking at once. I covered my mouth, trying not to breathe loudly. The footsteps continued, slow, patient. Then they stopped directly in front of the counter, only a few feet away from me. I could see her bare feet, completely pale, toes bent at unnatural angles. She stayed there for almost a full minute, not moving. Then suddenly her head snapped downward, directly toward where I was hiding. Even though her hair covered her face, I somehow knew she was looking at me. Then every light in the gas station shut off. I heard screaming outside, car doors slamming, people yelling, and something massive dragging itself across the roof. The woman began laughing softly. I crawled backward slowly toward the office. The laughter got louder. Then the emergency backup lights turned on. Dim red lights flooded the store. And I finally saw her face, no eyes. Just empty black sockets leaking dark liquid. And her mouth stretched open impossibly wide. She screamed. The sound physically hurt, like glass breaking inside my head. I ran into the office and slammed the door shut. Immediately something hit the door from outside. Bang, again, bang. The entire frame shook violently. Then silence. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against all logic, I answered. Rick spoke immediately. Did you hide? Yes. Listen carefully, he whispered. Do not let her hear you breathing. What is she? Long silence. Then she died here in 1997. Another bang hit the office door. Rick continued. Drunk driver dragged her almost 50 feet across the parking lot. The banging became louder. She comes back every winter looking for the man who watched her die. My throat tightened. What? Rick sounded terrified now. The cashier locked the doors and hid instead of helping her. Cold sweat covered my body. Outside the office, the woman started speaking softly. Please, another bang. Help me, another bang. Then her voice changed completely, deep and human. I found you. The office door bent inward violently. I shoved a cabinet against it while panicking. Then I noticed something horrifying on the security monitors. Outside the gas station, people stood around the building. At least 20 of them, all motionless, all staring toward the windows. And every single one had empty black eye sockets. The woman screamed again. The office lights exploded. Darkness swallowed the room. Then I felt fingers touch the back of my neck, ice cold. I spun around. Nobody there, but right beside my ear, breathing. I bolted through the back exit and ran into the desert. I didn't stop, didn't look back, just ran. Eventually I reached the highway where a truck driver picked me up. When police investigated later that morning, they found the gas station completely empty. No woman. No damage. No crowd outside, nothing. Rick was gone too. Apparently nobody named Rick had worked there in years. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. A week later, I searched online for the 1997 accident. I found an article. The cashier on duty that night had survived. But after the incident, he disappeared. His name was Rick Lawson. And the security photo attached to the article showed the exact same man who hired me. Don't watch channel 307 after midnight. I used to think local TV stations were harmless. Boring weather reports. Late night commercials. Old reruns nobody watches anymore. But there's a channel in Bismarck that still terrifies me to this day. A channel that technically doesn't exist. And if you ever see it appear on your television after midnight, turn it off immediately. This happened in December of 2024. At the time, I worked night security at a storage facility on the edge of town. The job was easy. Mostly sitting alone in a tiny office watching cameras while snowstorms buried the parking lot outside. To stay awake, I usually kept an old portable TV running in the background. Most nights it played static because the antenna barely worked. But one night around 12:17 a.m., the screen suddenly cleared by itself. A black screen appeared with white text on channel 307 local community broadcast, then the image flickered to a news desk. A woman sat there smiling directly into the camera. She looked wrong somehow. Her smile was too still, too perfect, like someone pretending to understand human expressions. Good evening, she said calmly. Tonight's emergency alerts will begin shortly. I frowned. I'd lived there almost my whole life. There was no channel 307. I grabbed the remote and tried changing the station. Nothing happened. The remote stopped responding completely. The woman continued speaking. If you are currently alone, remain calm. A strange pressure built in my chest. Something about the way she spoke made me uncomfortable instantly. Like she was talking directly to me. Do not acknowledge the knocking at your door tonight. I laughed nervously. Okay, the broadcast suddenly glitched. For one frame, just one, I saw something standing behind the woman, tall, dark. Its arms stretched almost to the floor. Then the image returned to normal. The woman kept smiling. If you hear breathing behind you, do not turn around. Every muscle in my body tightened. I slowly looked toward the office door, locked. Nobody there. The TV crackled loudly. Residents near Highway 6 should avoid eye contact with individuals standing along the roadside. The screen briefly showed grainy footage of a snow-covered road. Dozens of people stood motionless facing the camera. None of them moved. Then the footage cut away instantly. I reached for my phone to record the broadcast. No signal, not even one bar. That had never happened before. Then the TV woman said my name. I froze completely. She looked directly into the camera. Ethan, my stomach dropped. You should not be watching this channel. I almost fell out of my chair. There was no possible way the broadcast knew my name. The lights in the security office flickered once. Then all the camera feeds shut off simultaneously. Every monitor went black except one, camera 4. The rear storage lot. Snow blew heavily across the screen. At first it looked empty. Then a figure walked slowly into view, tall, wearing dark clothing, standing perfectly still, watching the building. The TV woman spoke again. Do not let them know you can see them. My breathing became shaky. The figure outside slowly tilted its head sideways. Then another figure appeared behind it. Then another. Within seconds, at least 15 people stood outside the fence motionless in the snow, all facing the office. None of them moved naturally. Something about them felt staged, artificial, like mannequins trying to imitate humans. Then all 15 figures suddenly stepped forward at the exact same time. I jumped backward. The TV screen flickered violently. Remain inside, the woman said calmly. Your survival probability is currently acceptable. The office door suddenly rattled hard, bang. I nearly screamed. Another violent bang shook the handle. Someone was outside. Then came knocking. 3 slow knocks. Exactly 3. I remembered what the woman said earlier. Do not acknowledge the knocking. The knocking continued, slow, patient. Then a man's voice came through the door. Security. I stayed silent. Hey man, my car broke down. His voice sounded normal, but something felt deeply wrong about it. I just need to use your phone. Another knock, then silence. I slowly looked through the office blinds. The man stood directly outside the door, smiling. His face was pale enough to almost glow under the parking lot lights, and his eyes completely black. No whites, no pupils, just black. The man stopped smiling instantly. Then he whispered through the glass, she told you not to answer. Every light outside shut off. Darkness swallowed the parking lot. Then dozens of shapes started moving outside, fast. Far too fast. I locked myself in the office bathroom immediately. The TV audio somehow continued playing through the walls, even though the television was outside in the main office. Do not hide in rooms with mirrors, the woman announced. I looked up slowly. Mirror above the sink. My heart nearly stopped, because my reflection wasn't matching my movements anymore. I stepped backward. My reflection stayed still. Then it smiled. I ran out of the bathroom instantly. The office was freezing cold now. Frost spread across the inside of the windows, and every security monitor had turned back on. All cameras showed the same thing, the office. Not different angles. Every monitor displayed the exact same live shot of me standing in the room. Except on one monitor, something stood behind me, tall, thin. Its face hidden in darkness. I spun around. Nothing there. The TV woman suddenly looked frightened for the first time. That is not part of the broadcast. The screen glitched violently. Loud static exploded through the speakers. Then another face appeared on screen beside her, a man. Except his jaw hung unnaturally low like it had been broken. His eyes darted wildly around the camera. "Turn IT off," he whispered desperately. The woman grabbed him suddenly, hard, too hard. Her fingers sank into his skin. His face stretched unnaturally while she forced him away from the camera. Then she smiled again. "We apologize for the interruption." The office ceiling creaked loudly above me. Slow footsteps moved overhead. Impossible. There was no second floor. The footsteps dragged slowly from one side of the ceiling to the other, then stopped directly above my chair. Dust drifted downward. Something whispered above the ceiling tiles. Not words, just wet breathing. I backed toward the exit. The TV woman spoke rapidly now. "Attention, viewers. The boundary has weakened." All the monitors flickered simultaneously. Then every camera outside showed the same horrifying image. Hundreds of people standing around the building. Completely silent. Completely motionless. Facing inward, watching. Then all of them smiled at once. My office phone rang. I answered without thinking. A terrified woman whispered immediately, "Don't let them hear the television." "What? You need to destroy it before 1 a.m. "Who is this?" Static crackled loudly. Then she whispered they used the signal to find people. The line disconnected. I looked at the TV. The woman on screen slowly turned her head toward me, almost like she heard the phone call. Then she smiled wider. "Viewer communication has been detected." Outside, the crowd began moving toward the building. Not running, jerking. Like frames missing from reality. 1 second they were near the fence. Next second they stood halfway across the lot. Then closer. Then directly outside the windows. Their faces pressed against the glass. Black eyes staring inward. The TV volume increased by itself. "Please remain calm," the woman said. "Your replacement will arrive shortly." Then someone knocked on the office door behind me. Not outside. Inside the building. 3 slow knocks. I backed away trembling. The knock came again. Then a voice whispered softly through the door. "Ethan," it sounded exactly like my mother. But my mom had died 2 years earlier. Tears filled my eyes instantly. Then the voice changed, deeper, wrong. "Open the door." The TV woman suddenly screamed, "Do not let IT inside." The office lights exploded. Glass shattered everywhere. Every monitor went black except one, camera 9. Storage unit C14. Its door slowly creaked open on screen. Darkness inside. Then something crawled out. Not human. Its limbs bent backward. Its head twisted unnaturally while dragging itself across the ground. And it moved impossibly fast toward the camera. The feed cut to static. Then I heard metal scraping outside the office. Something was crawling across the roof. The TV broadcast started breaking apart violently. Images flashed rapidly across the screen. Missing persons photos. Emergency alerts. Blood-covered hallways. People staring into cameras with black eyes. And hidden between the frames, a pale face smiling directly at me. The office door suddenly bent inward violently. Something huge slammed against it, again. The hinges started cracking. I grabbed the TV instinctively and threw it onto the floor. The screen shattered. Static screamed through the room. But the broadcast didn't stop. The broken screen still showed the woman smiling. "Signal loss detected," she whispered. Then every shadow in the room started moving. Not metaphorically. The actual shadows peeled away from the walls. Tall dark shapes stretched toward me across the floor. The broken TV began leaking black liquid. And from inside the shattered screen, hands started reaching out. Human hands. Dozens of them. Grabbing at the carpet. Pulling something through, I ran. Straight through the emergency exit into the snow. The crowd outside was gone. Completely gone. No footprints, nothing. I drove 20 miles before stopping. When police investigated the next morning, they found the security office abandoned. No broken television. No damage. No evidence anyone had been there except me. But here's the part that truly scares me. A month later, I was staying at a motel outside Denver. Around 12:17 a.m., the television turned on by itself. Black screen, white text, Channel 307 local community broadcast, and before I could unplug it, the woman smiled at me and said, "Welcome back, Ethan."